Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning back in. Glad you made it. Today we're going to be talking about the haves and the have-nots. It's really important to understand the situation because it sheds light on the human condition, exposes human nature for what it is. And the sooner that we understand human nature, the sooner we can implement solutions to fix the problems that we see around us today. We didn't always have the haves and the have-nots. In the beginning of our history, we understood that as we went out and collected resources, it was for the tribe. So there wasn't a whole lot of disparity. It was based on survival. But as we evolved, that has since changed. As we grew in our complexive thought, we began to think differently. As we collected more and more resources and became more and more abundant, we started implementing status. We started giving status to these individuals who had the greatest ability to gather resources, thus creating social classes. Obviously, the haves up at the top and the have-nots at the bottom. You look all through history and see examples of this happening everywhere. One of the first examples of this is the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you don't know about the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, I would highly advise you look into it. It's incredibly profound at explaining human nature for the way that it is, and how corrupt it can be based on gathering and hoarding resources for themselves. Gilgamesh, the king, was one such man, a have. He was very tyrannical. He wanted every single thing. He was already wealthy. He was already so wealthy, so powerful, and he used that to oppress others. And it wasn't until his friend died that he learned his lesson on changing and being okay with what he had. A lot of people throughout history didn't learn that lesson. Caesar was one of them, being assassinated. You look at other examples like Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI. All of these people were the haves, and they were dealt with by the have-nots. Because not only did they recognize, but the have-nots also recognized their status and influence that came with that great wealth. They used that to live in such luxurious lifestyles while everyone else was suffering. This was the last king and queen of France that ultimately ushered in the French Revolution. When the have-nots have suffered enough, they began to take action against the haves. We see this in the Declaration of Independence with King George III, who was very oppressive in his own right, imprisoning people on bogus trials, imposing crippling taxes. So the have-nots finally had about enough of it, and that's what led to the fight, ultimately giving us this great nation. The haves and the have-nots have been at war ever since we've started using our complexive thought against our own people. And we're even watching this happen in real time. It's happening in our own society. Look back, COVID was a great example of that. People were being arrested. Small business owners were having their lives destroyed because they didn't bring the resources that Walmart did, that Kroger did, that Target did. All of these big corporations could stand to operate with no pushback on the policies because they were able to buy off all of these politicians. Again, these are the haves. And this is human nature. We go to gather resources. And today, that even comes at the expense of someone else. Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, they made billions of dollars off of the COVID-19 vaccinations. While everyone else got poorer, they got richer. And it eliminated the middle class, essentially. Because now you need to make $120,000 to $145,000 a year to lead a decent life. And in some places, even higher than that. Some places close to DC are asking over $2,500 a month for a fucking studio, while you're still getting paid $50,000 to $60,000 a year. The have-nots are being extorted for every single thing they have today. The average day person. The haves always try their best to gatekeep. They gatekeep others from even the potential of losing resources. Good example of this, not only from COVID, but dating apps. A lot of men are being gatekept from finding matches. Pretty much having to pay just to be seen. And then when they are seen, their success rate is abysmal. While the haves go to Dubai and they fly models out to their yachts, and all kinds of horror stories happen out there. Women getting drugged, women getting assaulted, women even bringing their friends with them so that they can be assaulted. Isn't that crazy? That's some wild shit. But this is human nature. We pursue pleasure and avoid pain. And so the cycle repeats. The haves have done a really good job today of making the have-nots hate each other. Today, we point the finger at each other as if the family across the street from you is acting against your own interest. We've been convinced to believe that, but they're in the same social class as you are. The haves make the rules because they have those resources, they have that influence. And when you have such a great influence, there's really nothing that can stop you. This is the haves and the have-nots, put very simply. The only way out would be to take action. Stop buying into all of this shit that comes from these people's mouths. Stop believing everything that they say. Independence and true independence. Live off the land if you see fit. Or ultimately, you could become a have yourself and change things. There have been people that have done that. I brought up Gilgamesh earlier. Gilgamesh is also a really good point in this too. When he changed, he became a benevolent king. And he did have a long reign. People hated him in the beginning because of his oppressiveness, but they loved him towards the end because of his benevolence. The haves have the power to change the world, yet they only change it for themselves. The have-nots want to change the world, but can't even help themselves. That's really sad. It can't be changed. Capitalism was a really good component of the have-nots becoming the haves. And today, we don't really see capitalism anymore. You look at Bitcoin on Robinhood, how that was gatekept from the have-nots. You look at Dogecoin, how that skyrocketed. I knew a guy who made $14,000 just by putting in $400 in a Dogecoin, and when it reached 80 cents, people made massive profits from that. I could have made $1,200 off that just by putting in $100, but I only ended up with $600 because I listened to my wife, which is something I should have done. My gut was telling me to pull out, and I should have listened to it, but that's beside the point. The point is that there's always an opportunity to become a have. You just have to look for it. But in a lot of cases, too, the have-nots don't make it. It's unfair. It really is unfair. But life is unfair. It's very unfair. So all the more reason to have that mindset of a have to be able to survive. Because that's the only way you can survive. I think Karl Marx made a point about communism, that capitalism eventually leads to communism. And I think he was right about that. And the reason for is because it's human nature to collect and then safeguard resources, as I was talking about earlier. And so capitalism gives people the opportunity to gather resources, while safeguarding those resources leads to communism. And I hate communism just as much as the next red-blooded patriot. But again, I do think that Karl Marx had a point, ultimately leading back to the beginning. It's a cycle. Hard times create good men create good times create weak men create hard times. Right now we find ourselves in hard times. And this is how it relates to us men. We're the ones that have to do, because our families rely on us, our families depend on us, our nations depend on us. The ones that ultimately take action are the men. We've always built and destroyed nations. So find ways that you can escape this rat race, as people call it today. A lot of people are leaving the United States. They're selling their homes, they're leaving for better places, and I don't blame them, not at all. A lot of people are homesteading. I think that's a great idea. I think the homestead law should be reinstated. I really do. Or another homestead law. I think that would be a wonderful idea, but that might be gatekept too. We find ourselves in very interesting times, boys and girls. So make sure you also study up, and don't just take my word for it, so that you can understand human nature for what it is and come up with your own solutions to change the times, change the way things are today. People are suffering today, guys, and how long will people suffer before something finally changes? I'm making a change by doing this. I'm changing people's lives, talking with you guys. And some of you are changing mine. Give me some information to look into, to really think about. I appreciate that, guys. The more we talk about this, the more mainstream these conversations come. The more ways that we find to escape this pit that we're in with the have-nots, things will really start to change. But expect resiliency, expect pushback from the haves, because they don't want to give up what they got. That's why they implemented eugenics, is to protect themselves in a very, very ugly way. But this is reality, and this is what the human animal does. Again, human nature. So hope you were able to take something away from this video, guys, and learn something. Please let me know what your thoughts are. I'm very interested and intrigued to know what your guys' experiences are and what you guys are seeing. Where do you see these things going? Where do you see these things heading to? Guys, make sure you're taking care of yourselves, both mind and body. Take care of each other. There's not a whole lot of community for men out there. There's a reason for this channel. To come together and lift each other up. Listen, boys, I don't have it all figured out, but let's come together and figure it out together. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.